Good morning, everyone. You're probably wondering who I am. I'm definitely not Dr. Victor. My name's Kim. I was a student of Dr. Victor's in my undergrad research class as well as my master's, both in forensic psychology. And I survived her research class 15 weeks twice. So I know you guys can get through the next few weeks of this semester. I know research online has to be hard, but hopefully this video helps make content analysis and qualitative data seem a little bit more easy to understand and something that maybe that you want to do someday. I had a blast doing this research. I will do this research in my own time, in my free time, for years to come, just because it's something that I'm so passionate about. I hope that you guys find it interesting as well. I do apologize if you hear wildlife in the background. I am spending Memorial Day in North Georgia in the mountains, so there's quite a few birds and cats and stuff running around out here. But hopefully you were able to get some rest on this weekend as well. So Dr. Victor asked me today to talk a little bit about what content analysis is in qualitative research. So qualitative research is research based on literature or the words rather than the numbers. But a content analysis is taking what you read and making it into something that has math involved and more of the statistics that you've learned in other classes. So content analysis takes the content and picks it apart, finds ways to categorize it and make it more systematically organized. And the neat thing about a content analysis is you can go through a bunch of different articles this way. You've probably unknowingly done content analysis before. Mine, I took it a step farther and made it into a statistical research with the mixed measures design that we're going to talk about. Basically, what a content analysis is you're going to look through, say you're looking through research on COVID, or maybe you're just reading about articles that talk about how COVID has affected mental health in America or the uptick in domestic violence. Say you gather 30 articles about the uptick in domestic violence due to COVID-19, you're going to find ways to make all those different sources from across the country that you found, put it into categories so that you can look back at it and be like, okay, 18 of the 30 articles I found state the same truth here, or all 30 of them say that there is a rise to yada yada. So finding ways to make those individual articles more consistent across different modes or different sources is really what content analysis is all about. Your literature reviews that you might do for other classes, or if you are doing one in this class, you do yourself well if you do it from more than just one article. So looking at a bunch of different content and figuring out ways to synthesize it without like deducting from the truth of any of them. You don't want to summarize it and say, well, that's kind of the same thing. If it says that there are 8 orange balls and you say, well, those are kind of red, you can't categorize it that way. That's the important thing about making sure this is as objective as possible. Numbers are black and white. It's either 1 or it's 2. Literature or words, it's a little bit more, there's a lot more room for interpretation. So finding out ways to make it more systematic and consistent and less subjective was my biggest task, and it's something I'll explain in this next video. So we're going to go ahead and jump into my research. That is a mixed measures qualitative content analysis. So I actually have presented this research that I'm about to talk about a couple of times. We did it at the conference at Tiffin University when I had first started it in my master's in my research class in this time last year. And then I actually added a lot more to it, and I went with Dr. Victor to Montreal in November, and it was so cold, but we had a blast, and I was able to present my research internationally. I know research isn't for everyone, or they think it's not for them, but something that's great to add to your resume, and it's something that you see the world a lot differently once you understand the numbers behind the things that you're reading, or when you see the strength in some of the things that you've been exposed to on the news or things like that. So something that I have so much more appreciation for, and it's something that like I definitely know that employers are really looking for. My research took me a place that I didn't think I was going to be able to understand a little bit more. I've always been a criminal justice student, but I looked at a lot of things that related to marketing and business. So I had to kind of learn a whole new language while studying for this. Um, so my research is called Sex Sells or Doesn't. To be completely honest with you, I've always been super passionate about women's rights and things like that, but I wanted to see how the Me Too movement impacted the businesses that we see on a regular basis. Some of you might be super familiar with the Me Too movement. Some of you might have celebrated when Harvey Weinstein was convicted of the things that he was, or some of you are like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Basically, what the Me Too movement was, it was a movement just a couple of years ago that began um, with a tweet, a simple tweet from Alyssa Milano saying, "Me too," acknowledging the wrongdoing that Harvey Weinstein actually committed to her and many other people like her in the entertainment industry. That tweet was the tweet heard around the world, I say. Over the next few weeks after the first initial tweet, that hashtag Me Too was used over 100 million times. It's pretty crazy to acknowledge that those might be people who are either sympathizing and or allies with those people acknowledging the wrongdoings of others, or they're admitting the fact that they've also suffered in silence for plenty of years before then as well. So either way, I wanted to see if what I thought was an amazing social media movement that was really helping break the silence was just on social media, or if we were doing a little bit better at changing the world that we lived in through how people treated each other, what expectations did other businesses or other things have for the people that were working for them or attending those places, entertainment world, watching the movies. Like, I don't know if any of you don't watch things that have had people who have been accused of wrongdoing. I'm kind of maybe just the weird one that does that. But anyway, um, there's actually not too much about this movement yet, research-wise. The movement began in 2017, so it's been a couple years now. I started this research in early 2019, and I just finished it. I guess it's not technically finished. I don't have the paper done yet, but the research is all done and at the end of 2019. So I'm going to skip over kind of the general stuff just because this is kind of the background and you guys are mostly here to understand what I did with my research. So we'll start with the things that are starting to sound familiar as you're taking this class of some words that are really important to research. Empirical questions are basically, what did I want to see out of this study? How could I make that? Those are the kind of the ways that you focus in. Because frankly, my ideas were all over the place. And I sat down in Dr. Victor's office and she goes, I think what you want to do is a content analysis because you don't want to survey individuals and give them a questionnaire that says, how has this impacted you? You want to see how it's impacted businesses. And I definitely didn't have time or the resources to interview people that worked at various businesses. So we had to figure out another way. So how we did it was we decided that we were going to look at analyzing the differences in their policies, so their employee handbooks. And we looked at a couple different factors. The content based on the organization. So I looked at restaurants, corporations, and stores. So that was like my three, those are my empirical realizations to the variable of organization. And then the other one is I compared American-based companies to Canadian-based companies. So country was my other variable with empirical realization of American and Canadian. I started this research with the goal to analyze the impact directly of the Me Too movement. I guess it's indirectly. I wanted to look at policies that were updated before 2017. So the next step in research is taking what questions you have and turning it into something that looks a little bit like this. So this is my methodology here, and this is a way that you can kind of graph out the things that you're going to want to compare to each other. So my research was a 2x3 factorial between and within persons non-repeated mixed measure design. Basically, as simple as it can be, the two is American versus Canadian. So two is the fact that one of my variables is country. The other one is type of organization. Those empirical realizations make it three because I have restaurants, corporations, and stores. I analyzed a total of 60 companies, 10 of each of those categories there. So 30 American, 30 Canadian. The between means I compared between all of those different categories. So American restaurants, I compared to Canadian corporations and vice versa. You kind of have a big matrices to combine all of your different spots there. Within is within your same category. So I compared within just American, I compared within just Canadian companies, compared within just restaurants, just corporations, just stores. So that's kind of what that means. It's a little bit complicated when it sounds like that. It sounds way fancier than it actually is. But when you look into it, that's basically